According to Harvard University, medical experimentation refers to the testing and evaluation of a new drug or procedure on a human person in order to gain generalizable knowledge that can be used for various purposes. Medical experimentation has been around for decades. For the majority of people, when they first hear medical experimentation, their minds flood with negative scenarios. However, it is important that we outweigh all the negative results with the positive ones. When it comes to medical experimentation, it is necessary to have trial and error during these medical experimental findings due to finding a solution that could potentially find a cure for the entire world. In the book Heart of a Dog by Mikhail Bulgakov, medical experimentation is expressed through Professor Filip Filipovich conducting a surgery that included Sharik and a male body who was 28 years old and that had just died 4 hours and 4 minutes before operation. December 23 is when the first operation occurred. On page 56, it was stated directly following pituitary gland or hypophysis removed after trepanning of skull and replaced by a human one taken from above man. As well as on page 56, it states that Sharik's testes removed under chloroform anesthesia and placed by grafts of human testes with epididymis and seminal cords, which was from the man who was being used during the experiment. It seems to be that there was preparation in order to get this operation done because on page 56 to 57 it states operative indication. Preobensky experimented with combined transplantation of hypothesis and testes to determine viability of hypothesis transplant and subsequently its effect on rejuvenation of human organism. The operation was performed by both professors Filip Filipovich and Dr. Bormenthal. After the surgery, there was a drop in the pulse rate where after medication was administered, as well as a notice in the extremities being cold. It was not till the next day that things started to look a little better for Sharik. His pulse, respiration, and temperatures were at a good level. Sharik then is able to open his eyes, start to eat, eventually being able to bark and speak in a slow but fast manner, which the professor expressed his feelings on page 58. I am totally bewildered. Considering that he was able to pick up a rich vocabulary every 5 minutes or so, Sharik advanced with skills like being able to get dressed on his own and being able to read. The last statement was on January 17th. I have no entries for several days, was sick with influenza. During these days, his characteristics have evolved completely. And these characteristics were his body structure being fully human, being very short, weighing about 3 pounds, picking up habits like smoking, being able to dress himself, as well as being able to converse fairly. Considering all the progress Sharik made during this medical experiment, it is evident enough that medical experimentation is necessary for science to advance. Now, for many, this experiment may arise quite many questions. For example, some will ask if it was even morally correct to put human organs into a dog. We have to consider that in today's world, we have a right to decide if our organs can be harvested after dying. Heart of a Dog was originally written in 1925 during the height of the new economic policy in the Soviet Union. This piece of literature was immediately rejected and banned from being published until 1987 in the Soviet Union. Shortly after the book was released, it was turned into a movie in which it was aired in the Soviet Union. Long before this book was even written, such experiments were already taking place. According to the Article 5, Unethical Medical Experiments Brought Out of the Shadow of History, written by Alison Futterman, talks about some of the cases where medical experimentation was unethical. One that stood out to me the most and reminded me of Heart of the Dog was the case of Dr. Leo Stanley, who was the chief surgeon at a correctional facility in California from 1913 to 1951. In the article, Futterman stated he believed the effects of aging and decreased hormones contributed to criminality, weak morality, and poor physical attributes. Transplanting the testes of younger men into those who were older would restore masculinity, he thought. Over time, he had no longer had subjects, so he turned to transplant the testicles from animals. Along with this case, there are countless others such as Monster Study that was conducted by Weldon Johnson. What all these experiments failed to do was abide by ethical principles which includes justice, non-malfeasance, autonomy, benefits, and more. Personally, none of these experiments contributed positively to the science of medicine. Just as there have been negative medical experimentations, there have been ones that have made major breakthroughs. The most recent would have to be the COVID 19 vaccine. When COVID took the world by storm, no one was prepared. Without a doubt, scientists began to experiment different ways to either control, contain, or get rid of this deadly virus. That is exactly what they did in less than a year. Multiple studies were underway testing a vaccine that was effective. Out of numerous trials, there are only 3 approved here in the US: Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. All the volunteers that were in these trials gave consent and knew the potential risk. With the Delta variant on the rise, I can see the Jacobson versus Massachusetts case being referred. After after this is one of those things where the greater good of the population outweighs the rights of an individual. This vaccine has proven to be highly effective. Another example of a positive medical experiment would be Jonas Salk. He did not test on outside subjects, rather on his own family first. He developed a polio vaccine using a killed virus. Unlike other experiments, he did not have a special lab. He did it right in his own kitchen, which is why he faced a lot of criticism. The main difference was that he was developing the vaccine at much faster rate than others. In 1952 was when he decided to vaccinate his wife, 3 kids, and himself. He then patterned with the school to vaccinate a small population of their students. What came after was monumental. By 1954, more than 1.8 million people had been vaccinated. Although many may think he was insane for putting his family at risk, if he would have never taken the chance, he would have never saved thousands and thousands of lives. Medical experimentation is necessary to have trial and error during these medical experimental findings due to finding a solution that could potentially find a cure for the entire world. It all comes down to being able to separate what is right from wrong. The purpose of the experiment has to have pure intention with the goal of saving people rather than harming them. With this being said, it also does not mean that every experiment will go well, but it will definitely lead for researchers to be a step closer.